Oh, we're live. Okay. Let me see. View on YouTube. I need to drop this link without. Here, I'm going to send this to the other stream. Welcome to what is now definitely the most radical stream on YouTube. What's up, Patriot Government? You're Duck, right? What's up, buddy? I guess I'll make a let me set up an invite link. There's a StreamYard. I know Vic wanted to come on. I know James had some questions. Let me see what you guys got. That was a lot of fun. I really love the debate part. I really wanted to. I was kind of bummed I didn't get to promote myself to Craig's audience at the end there, because I think those are really my people. You know, no offense to the Raging Tomato folks, but a lot of them don't like me very much. But Craig's audience seems like they seem like exactly the audience I'm going for. So we'll see. I'll give you a wrench. Yeah, sure. Hang on. No? You don't want it? Okay. I don't care either way. I got a bunch of mods. They're just not here right now. What up, Orthodox guy? I posted the StreamYard link, so anyone who wants to hop on, you're welcome to. I'm gonna message Vic because I know he was trying to get on. My well-intentioned but misguided friend. I would love for you to explain, what I'm misguided about. Help me learn. I love learning. My catchphrase is literally "learning is radical." So if you have some stuff to teach me. Oh wait, hang on. Group layout. There we go. What's up, Orthodox guy?
Hey, I was just typing in the chat. Do you want a nerd or political conversation tonight?
Up to you, man. I mean, I don't mind either one.
Well, I was liking the nerd conversations, but I don't watch a lot of TV, and most of my knowledge is waning when it comes to popular culture.
So you prefer to talk politics? I'm cool with that as well. Hey, Vic.
Not really. I despise politics, especially since James is gonna be coming.
Yeah. What's your one purpose, Vic?
So Donald Trump went after women when with abortion rights and all that, and I didn't say anything because I'm not a woman. He went after trans people, and I also didn't say anything because I was not a trans person. But today, he went after movies, and now I feel like I have no one left to defend me.
So
my counter to that is defend yourself.
What's your problem with me talking about politics, Orthodox? What's your problem?
I just don't like talking to you about politics, James.
Why?
It makes me feel bad.
Why?
I'm gonna be nice to you. I'm just gonna say it makes me feel bad.
I want to know why. Just tell me. Just be brutal with me.
Because you don't have the cognitive ability to understand most of the conversation.
Damn.
And a lot of people wind up having to go back and explain it to you over and over and over again. And I'm not trying to be mean because I enjoy your presence. You're fun to talk to, but I just don't like talking about politics.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about politics. I'm willing to admit that I don't know a lot about.
There's not learning, and then there's cognitive decline. But I'm not going to be mean.
What do you mean
I don't
cognitive
mind explaining things
decline?
over and over.
Cognitive decline.
I find myself explaining the same things over and over to conservatives constantly. It's kind of it's been a theme on this channel actually for years.
Well, here's my point on that, and I'll let John, since he's probably a conservative, you're probably a liberal. I am not either one of those things. We're not here to talk about me. What I see from the outside looking in is you're both both liberals and conservatives are tribalist and
They are.
mostly wrong.
Yep.
And they're stuck in this. Anything you do is bad.
Yep.
Anything you do is bad.
So why aren't you
Trump's
just
done bad
describing? You're
things
just talking
too,
about
so-
yourself.
All right, one at
You're
a
just
time. One at
talking
a time,
about
guys.
yourself. No,
All
no,
right,
you
all
can't
right.
do that.
Hey, I'm the
Okay,
tomato here
no.
now. Okay.
Orthodox
You're
guys,
tomato.
and I haven't once heard you say, well, I could learn more about this, or I didn't know this, or I'll wait to see if I have an opening for this.
Because
And
I'm
so
not going to tell
all
you
I
if I
take you
don't
to-
know.
no,
Because I'm not going to
what I
argue
take
something I
you,
don't
what I
know.
take you to actually be saying is, I think in tribal terms. I'm assuming an Orthodox.
I didn't even finish my point,
belief
buddy.
system where I put God, I put this little pin in everything, and now it's Orthodox guy, God. We're right next to each other, and so I'm not even
Did you notice
tribal.
the Orthodox is misspelled?
All right.
I don't know what the fuck
Orthodox.
that
All
has
right,
to do with
pop
anything.
off, King. Let me finish my point. They
Yeah,
have
what were you gonna say?
they're too busy arguing. Like conservatives and liberals are too busy
Right.
arguing with one another over irrelevant, stupid tribal issues that they
Yeah.
miss the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
And the mono party in our country is saying, fuck the people, fuck the economy, fuck you, fuck them. All that matters is our corporate benefactors.
What the
And when I
fuck
say
are you
corporate,
talking about?
when I say corporate
You literally
benefactors,
don't know anything. You literally know nothing.
Actually, he knows more than you think.
No, he doesn't. He hasn't. He can't say one
Hmm.
true thing. Say something true.
So are you gonna tell me that time and time again, regardless of liberal or conservative, Congress people's stock portfolios are like always expanding, always massive as fuck. That they never lose out. And you can tell by this alone that they engage in insider trading.
Well,
Are you
most
gonna
What
say?
did-
Are you
what did
gonna?
you-
Are you gonna
what
say
did
that?
you
Any,
fuck
are
up?
you gonna
What
say
did-
that any
no, tell
actual
me, what
political
did you
party
fuck
has
up in
done
that
anything for
statement?
the American people, much less
What did you
anyone
fuck
else?
up in that
All right,
statement?
Orthodox. Wrap it up.
What
Land the
did you
plane,
fuck up
Orthodox.
there?
It's landed. It was landed
Okay.
a minute ago before Duck started spurging at me.
Okay,
I
Duck,
didn't
go ahead.
spurg. What did you fuck up? What did you fuck up in your statement? Fix it.
Yeah, correct it. What was the thing you said you fucked up?
Well, Duck would have to be more
I didn't fuck
specific on
anything
what he
up.
meant by
Okay.
fucked up.
Well, so I guess
Excuse me, by
I'm
the way.
not convinced by this. Real quick, Vic, and then I'll let you. But I'm not convinced by this whole monoparty thing. It seems like people in Congress do vote against different things, often based on party affiliation, sometimes on the edges of that. It seems like if we vote different people in, slightly different things happen. It's a slow process, but it's intentionally slow because that's kind of how our Constitution is designed. And it seems like we didn't have before Donald Trump right now, we didn't have any president who was straight up outright defying a Supreme Court ruling. This is unprecedented. And I get completely, everyone laughs whenever I say this. It's so strange. These people who claim to love America, they claim to be, they claim to care about our country. They claim to care about our values, but they sit here and they laugh whenever I bring up the fact that Donald Trump is defying one of our most core fundamental values of the country. It's very bizarre to me. Go ahead, Vic.
No, it's not just that. It's not just that.
Wait, everyone. Everyone shut the fuck up.
Even
Shut
soft.
the fuck up.
No,
All
no,
of you.
because listen to this bullshit. Ryan went soft on this, and you guys can't even be honest that, oh, it's bright and shiny when it's about me. It's bright and shiny when it's my opinion. When it's actually a fact about the world, then it's nothing. It doesn't exist. It's complete bullshit. You guys got to learn to be honest. I mean, I didn't come up here to scream at people, but holy fucking hell, if that's what this is turning into.
Yeah, so Vic, I want to let Vic go, and then I'll let John, Orthodox, and James, you can contend with what I said. But yeah, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, I think a lot of liberals, they don't understand that everything Trump won because liberals messed up. Every good thing Trump does is because liberals messed up. Every bad thing Trump does is also because liberals messed up. Basically everything, and Trump can do no wrong because anything that's wrong ever is actually liberals' fault. So remember, you never have a problem with conservatives. Every problem that you could have with conservatives is always the fault of the liberals. That's my
Rose
word of
cooking.
wisdom.
All right,
Oh
all right.
my,
So
oh
who
my.
wants to go? John, Orthodox, or James? Which one?
Well, I want to talk to you about the thing we talking about on tomatoes, but
So which thing?
the
Supreme
the
Court
thing
I just brought up,
about
or
the 3 government parts of the government, I think you're saying could get corrupted or something.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that right now we have the executive. So I mean, we have 3 branches of the government, right? Executive, judicial, and legislative, and they have checks and balances that are set up to counter each other, so that no one branch gets too powerful. Because we are founded on a constitution that we established in opposition to a monarchy. And so we decided to set up a constitutional system where we have these kinds of checks and balances, and we can counter each other so that no one branch gets too powerful and starts exerting their authority over the rest of the branches. And so one example of a branch exerting its authority over the other branches would be an executive branch that gets a ruling from the judicial branch and then says, I don't care about that ruling. I'm going to do what I want anyway. That's what kings do. And I don't want Trump to be a king because I'm an American. So that's why I don't like this. Yeah, sure. So that's why I don't like what's happening right now. But go ahead, Orthodox.
This is why I don't like arguing with liberals, and it's not just you liberals; it is both conservatives, and conservatives actually do it worse than liberals, but liberals harp on it so much more in the time being. But you've made the claim both on your own stream and on Tomatoes that Trump is the only.
So you're talking to Vikram, right? Because Vikram was the one who said. Vikram was the one that used the liberal identity.
The same energy on Flow State's channel.
No.
Next time you're up there. Anyway, but
no.
Please.
But Ryan, so again, I'm going to give you the chance. Is Trump the only president that that's defied the Supreme Court?
What's your other example?
All right. I'm going to list all 4 because it is extremely rare.
Can we start with one? Like, just bring up one, and we'll go into that one.
Well,
you have to list off all 4.
Research. Well, I can list off 4 right off the bat. Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, but
Abraham
I don't want you to list off 4. Hang on, I don't want you to list
Franklin
off 4.
Delano Roosevelt and Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Okay, so what's the first one that you want to talk about?
Well, we'll go in order. I'll like I said, I'll tell you what they did. All right, Andrew Jackson, the case Worcester v. Georgia. The Supreme Court ruled that Georgia's law over Cherokee lands was unconstitutional, affirming Cherokee sovereignty. Jackson, who supported the Indian removal policies, repeatedly said John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. And that led this directly led to the Trail of Tears.
I agree that he did defy the Supreme Court there. Okay, I'll concede that. I also think that him actually saying that is contended. But he did defy the Supreme Court. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, moving on to someone more recently.
Sure.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Multiple new, and I can go back to Abraham Lincoln, or I can move on to Dwight D. Eisenhower if necessary. But
let's stick on FDR for now.
The Franklin Delano Roosevelt, multiple New Deal cases, Shooter, Upholstery Court versus United States v. W. Butler. The Supreme Court struck down key New Deal programs unconstitutional, frustrating Roosevelt's economic recovery. FDR openly criticized the courts and proposed a court-packing plan in 1943 to appoint additional justices to secure majority. And he also defied most of these policies by continuously pushing them.
So he clashed with the Supreme Court.
He defied them. He defined them openly because most of these policies were still pushed through. So let's not go there.
Wait, were they pushed through? Were they pushed through exactly as they were initially, or
well,
were they
Trump's
modified?
Policies are not being pushed through exactly as they are. He's doing the same thing FDR did.
Let me ask. I'm going to ask again. Did they change the legislation that was being proposed? Did he change the law that was being proposed?
Only slightly, just as Trump is doing.
Yeah. So just like
the reason I'm arguing with you on this, and I'm being belligerent, is I'm trying to make you see that the Trump administration is slightly changing the legislation each time it gets slapped down, just like famous liberal presidents have done. You see why I'm doing that.
Well, no, I see what you're saying, but I don't think that you're right about FDR outright refusing or denying the Supreme Court ruling. I think that FDR
Trump is not outright denying the Supreme Court ruling.
Well, he is, and he's lying about the ruling. He has Stephen Miller saying that He has Stephen Miller saying that he did not, Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi, both in the Oval Office, saying that they didn't lose the ruling, that it was actually ruled in their favor, which it was not. They ruled that the deportation
I don't care about him lying.
Kilmar
All
was
politicians
illegal.
lie. What's an example?
Okay, well, you should care when it's regarding a Supreme Court ruling, right? That's because we're talking about our checks and balances, and we're talking about why it's
You and I, and other citizens can look up the Supreme Court ruling. They're open to the public. All politicians lie.
I'm aware. So
Orthodox guy,
if we
it
look
seems
at
like
it,
you're using a double standard. It doesn't sound like you're approaching this.
I'm not getting. I hate Donald Trump. I hate FDR.
cool. I want to hear Duck.
I mean, it's not a double standard.
That's fine. Orthodox, chill. Go ahead, Duck.
Yeah, I think the lack of depth of argumentation is something that is taking away points. Also, I think the aggressive nature you're using while not responding sort of breaks credibility and trust. So that would be my feedback. Is I didn't get any sort of I thought Ryan was, even if Ryan's points were maybe.
I would say the same to you, Doug. I would say that I pick up on some very
Hang
underhanded
on, both of you, hang on. Duck,
No, that's fine.
Finish what you're saying.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that I'm not critiquing like Ryan, but like I didn't think Ryan's points were conclusive, but you made it that way because you broke your own credibility and trust. So
because I act in a
it doesn't
manner
really
you
matter
don't
what
like.
John says either.
So I act in a manner you don't like. So the truth of the facts of the matter don't matter. Thank you for making part of my point. Liberals don't care about the truth.
Well, here's the thing.
So you don't have listening skills. Orthodox guy, you need better listening skills because I specifically outlined that your argument didn't have depth. I don't know if you understand what depth means. But depth is typically that, like, if we're making a broad point, we would need tangible examples, instantiated, maybe multiple methodologies. We have some definitions we're playing with, and we're able to just have a conversation after that. But again, like I said, you tried to brush aside Ryan's points, which was something that I didn't totally or necessarily appreciate. I felt it was out of context.
Yeah. So if I can express my frustration with, because I feel that I agree with Duck that my frustration with what was happening there, because I really do enjoy learning about this stuff. Okay, hang on. I really do. I love learning about this shit, and I'm okay with being wrong about something. Okay, but what I want to know, the reason I was trying to drill down on each one is because I'm trying to get the actual, I want to know, like, what should I search? What can I Google to get the facts that will lead me to your conclusions? Like, I care about that. So when we go, I'm going to give you 4 examples, and then we hammer it through one, and I'm asking you questions, and you're just asserting answers to them that don't align with my understanding of how these things work. And when I start Googling things, I see like slightly different things than what you're saying. It's frustrating because I don't feel like I'm learning. I feel like I'm being fed your information, your perspective, without any sort of backing for it. And it also makes it so that other people who are trying to learn are also frustrated.
But let me ask you this question, because how could you have done that kind of research and be able to make that kind of analysis as quick as you did based on the response and information that Orthodox guy gave? Because obviously he did give an example. I'm not saying it was well flushed, but he did give an example of the 1937 situation with the court packing. So
appeal to authority. I took a 500 level con law class when I was an undergraduate because I was part of the honors college. So I'm not encyclopedic. I don't claim to be an expert on constitutional law or law in general, but I know how to read case law, and that's not what Orthodox guy was presenting. Like I mentioned, I didn't think the depth was there. It seemed more like sort of like a study guide or ChatGPT answer.
Well, then my criticism to you, Duck, would be that in your attempt to try to broach someone else's seemingly sophistry, you engage in it yourself. So I don't know if you realize that or not.
With sophistry, it is typically the sophist.
Well, you can. I mean, if you want to watch this back, John, and you take what Orthodox guy says and say, well, I'm going to take this over what Wendell Holmes said as a primary source, or what I can even find on Google Scholar.
Okay, so
any other places.
do you not understand how you
wait, hold on, wait.
The dissonance with what I just said there?
Didn't you just accuse me of using GPT, and then you bring up using search engines to?
Well, and not only
formulate your own
that, but
point?
he also talked about,
Wait.
I'm not about doing
Alright, slow down.
a appeal of authority, and then he does an appeal of authority. I mean,
Well,
I don't know if
fa-
this is
fa-
a
fallacy-
recording.
fa- fallacies are all false anyway.
I mean,
This
this
is
is the
almost-
kind of
this is
the kind of
hilarious.
bullshit that
This
makes
is so
that makes
funny.
it that makes
This
it
is so funny.
what you do on the surface seemingly.
Well, the
just
irony is,
off the street.
no, John, the irony is you guys could go on CNN and just see exactly how far off you
Never
are
go
from
on
the
CNN
worst
or
media
Fox.
station ever.
What
The
the fuck are
worst
you
people
talking
in the
about?
world.
Why would you
And
go
you
on
guys
liberal
have
news?
you guys have 1% of 1% of their understanding.
What percent of
That's the
1%?
funny part. If you want the
You're
You're
soap
making
history.
a lot
Doug,
of rash
Doug,
assumptions
Doug,
for someone that looks for depth.
Doug,
Okay.
you are a natural contrarian. Keep that, like I said, keep the
I don't think
same
that's what it
energy
is.
on
No, I'm
Flowstate's
not.
channel when we're
No,
over
I'm not,
there.
Orthodox guy. You hold on to that one for me. Why am I contrarian?
So next time you're on Flows, don't try to be buddy with me. Keep the same energy up.
I don't know what the fuck
we
you're
can give
talking
them some
about, dude.
entertainment.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong? What? You
I'm
are
not here to be
like
friends
this
with
now.
any of
This
you
is like a
except for Vic,
fortune
okay?
cookie. It's like you now. It's like you're just finding random statements that don't mean anything.
I
Go
only
ahead,
know
pick
you
those
from the
up, buddy.
Powdered Dusty's channel, and you're always buddy, and like I don't talk to really anybody, and like
I don't give
for
a
some reason
fuck.
you're being hostile as fuck.
Well, you're a
So I
bitch,
don't
so
get it.
suck my dick, fucking pussy.
You have to
I'm
have
gonna
a
step
dick.
down. I'm getting
Oh,
tired.
Yeah, suck a fucking dick, bitch.
You have
You're
to
a
have
fucking
what I gotta
pussy.
do today.
I'll be
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
too bad. I wish you had wrestled in high school. I wish you had done any
Y'all
form of
have a great
athletics.
one.
I wish you had a male figure like me that could coach you up, so I didn't have to do it online.
oh my gosh.
Duck,
I don't know why
I
all
do
you had to
HEMA
say,
and I
all you had to
talk.
say is,
I
Y'all
I
can't hear
didn't,
me,
man.
right? Y'all have a great one.
I do
You could've
I
just
do
said,
I do
have stuff I
HEMA
don't
and I
understand.
box.
Yeah.
And I did.
You could have just
did
said I
wrestle
don't
in
know
high
some
school,
things.
And I did
All
wrestle.
right, all right.
in high
Let's
school.
let's wind it down.
No,
Let's
you
wind it down.
didn't.
We're getting
Nice ad
we're getting
hominem,
lost in
buddy.
the sauce.
Just
Okay.
real quick, I'm gonna head
go
out
ahead.
for like half an hour, and I might be back in a bit. I'll talk to you all later.
Yeah, take care, buddy.
Well, I'm
Good
gonna
seeing you.
head out because I got stuff to do today. Y'all have a great one.
All
Have a
good.
good one, James.
Yeah, bye,
Take care,
James.
buddy.
See you,
Be safe.
James. Have a good one.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
so I guess
can I-
to bring it
can I
back.
address
Well, hang on, real quick. So what I want to ask you is, if you're saying, even if I yield all of your examples of
Mhm.
presidents defying the Supreme Court, if I agree to all of them, I say that they all happened, do you think? Would you agree that like Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court right now?
Yes, I would, and
Yeah,
I would even argue that it's the president's
Um,
job to challenge the authority of the Supreme Court, just like it's the Supreme Court's job to challenge the authority of the president. Just like it is
So,
both of those
you would-
branches' authority to job to challenge the authority of the Congress. That's why we
So
have
would you
checks and
acknowledge?
balances.
Would you acknowledge that the most recent example of a president doing this was in 1974, before Trump?
I would need to know more about what was done.
Nixon.
It was
Nixon, what
Nixon,
did
yeah.
Nixon do?
Nixon was. I mean,
I hate
could be wrong.
Nixon, by the
I'm reading this-
way.
That's fine. I don't care. I
being
don't
honest.
care about who you hate. But like, I'm reading this from ChatGPT, so correct anything that's like a little off. Okay, so I do take this stuff with a grain of salt when I read it from here. But it says that the Supreme Court ordered Nixon to release the Watergate tapes. Is that true?
Mm.
John, you
Yes.
seem to be aware of the case. So when you nodded, so I assume that's true.
Did they order it? Yeah, they did order it. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
And that's
he-
that's Congress's right under their
Yeah.
under rights given to
So
Congress.
he did ultimately comply, but only after weeks of resistance and mounting
Right.
political pressure is what it says.
Well,
So he
and,
did
and
ultimately
also
comply.
with other things that should be considered.
Well, you know what they should have done? They should have done their constitutional duty, and they should have impeached him, or attempted to impeach him.
Right, and they didn't get a chance because he resigned before they could do that. So,
Okay, so
Nixon-
so you
Nixon
think
was
that
horrible.
so real quick, by that standard, you think that right now we should be impeaching Donald Trump?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's Congress's job, but good
Okay.
luck with the Republican
yeah,
majority.
and
Yeah, I
you know
mean,
what?
well,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what. Another thing, Ryan. I think it is very troubling for anybody to hear the things that has come out of Pam Bondi's mouth, especially when she was talking about when they were talking about him doing like a third term, and she's like, "Well, I just don't think he's thought about that yet." That's not the right answer. The right answer is, yeah, no, he can't, and he won't. Like, so obviously there are those concerns. So, that's
Okay.
I don't think you're wrong for the concerns that you have. I think people who don't have any concerns whatsoever are problematic. But I do think that how those things become put into a process of how the criticism is done, it becomes a similar thing. And I'll be honest with you, it was a similar thing which was done. And I see it all the time. And I think this is kind of, and I don't want to put words in Orthodox guys' mouth, but I think it's a similar thing that I've seen as well, which is when you see people of different parties and groups and different politicians and different who you're right, that are supposedly supposed to vote with what their party standards are, right? Whatever their values, that loosely should define them as a party. When they within a span of 10 to 15 years change, and even less than that, change from those things, and you see that both sides are engaging in the same type of bullshit, then to me it's an issue of this, which is that let's be honest about like the problem. And again, this is what I was trying to explain before my cat killed my internet, is I think the TDS is real, but I also think that there is this MAGA cult worship. And I think was the person, that lady, she was like at a church service or something, and she was painting him or something. It was like the most cringiest shit I've ever seen in my life.
My brother in Christ, there's been people that's literally prayed to Donald Trump.
I know. And the things
I have family who thinks he was like basically put there
chosen by God. He's like
my grandmother, who is a pastor, right? She's a Protestant. She's a pastor. She not only told me that God ordained Donald Trump to be a leader, but he was the most Christian president we ever had. And it's like, grandmother,
which is insane.
You're aware that he cheated on one of his wives with multiple whores and like a porn star.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but like, I mean, not only that,
civilly liable for sexual assault, and I mean that's just scraping the surface of things that make him,
he's not the leader our country needs. Do I disagree with everything he's doing? No.
Okay.
Trying to bring manufacturing back is a matter of national security. I don't care, and I've referenced Powder Dusty. He brings up good points about prices and the living standard dropping slightly, but it will drop more so to not bring manufacturing back. Plus, it's a matter of national security. You cannot have your entire industrial base being controlled by hostile nations. And as far as capitalism goes, capitalism will never be able to compete with communist ideology.
Back to the fucking psychobabble bullshit.
Basically uses slave labor.
A little bit.
Back to the psychobabble bullshit.
We were on a good string for a minute there, but then it starts.
How is it psychobabble? How is it psychobabble?
I understand.
Okay, same question. What the fuck did you get wrong? What did you say wrong?
Nothing.
It's always the same question. What did you say wrong?
Nothing.
Okay, so real quick.
Is China a communist nation?
Sorry. So
do they not employ slave labor?
Fuck up. I can mute you guys. I'm not doing it because I'm nice. Okay, I can mute you guys.
I know. That's why I said you're a nice liberal guy. I like that about you. You're a nice guy.
I appreciate it. Listen. Yeah. I should do these panel stuff more. I would probably be a really good host. I should actually do this more. So Orthodox, I think the frustration is that like we were on a string of interesting points about specific things. And then, I understand you're saying something specific when you say the stuff about communism and capitalism. But the problem is the stuff you're saying there is really, really broad. And it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And it really comes off as kind of like babble. And so I just to bring it back, where were we right before that? I think we were all
before the xenophobic stuff, before the xenophobic tirades. I didn't know where we were.
How is it? Now it's xenophobic.
Oh my God.
Wait, don't get triggered.
No, it's xenophobic.
Realism.
It's
realism.
It's realism. Well, it is triggered because
that funny?
It's triggered because what Duck is saying is to bring back infrastructure jobs and to talk about having a strong economy. It's just like if I said people should have kids, I'm sure Duck would be the kind of person that said you're a fucking racist for saying that kind of shit. So I mean, really, he's being more triggered.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've heard.
Yeah, no, because that's the kind of bullshit that people.
Yeah, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
So John knows is the fucking Duck expert. Bitch.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of the shit that you do, and it corresponds with other shit that I see.
The shit that you do coming from a fucking comic book expo, bitch.
Yeah.
So Duck, can you wait? I just totally got lost. I don't know why John you're asserting something that like I don't think he said.
Because I can understand undertone, because when you say xenophobia, that actually has a connection to it, right? Which is probably talking about the fact that he's talking about something about, because he's probably somebody that would be more of a globalist, right? And somebody that thinks we should
I don't
be
know what
able to
that
expand.
means.
John, let me stop you there.
I'm a political science major.
I know Duck from Flo's channel. He literally just goes on a panel and pretty much cozies up to the host and adopts their ideas and just chills
okay.
out, takes their side.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know
Because when he's on Flow
on
States,
panels where
when he's on Flow States and everyone else, he does that.
I mean, whatever you guys want to think. I mean,
No,
yeah,
that's
you
what
guys are fucking.
So that was a
idiots,
dog whistle,
so
basically. It
you
was
guys
a
are
dog
fucking
whistle, and
pussies.
that's
How about
what he
both of you
knows,
stop?
because-
How about John and Orthodox? You guys chill for a second and let Duck explain what he meant by xenophobia. How about that?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so I would say if we're describing, so first there's an unsubstantiated claim that the United States isn't competitive when we're not doing manufacturing. That is, not to quote like non-fun, but we would want to sort of see some data on durables, non-durables. We'd also want to contextualize the sort of global push for high-tech manufacturing, energy sectors, as well as agriculture. And so that's an unsubstantiated claim. Secondly, to use that unsubstantiated claim to then accuse other nations of being hostile nations is something that is unforgivable, not only on the level of presidential politics, but it's also it's unacceptable for an uneducated citizenry to start saying that we're introducing this concept of violence against nations that necessarily haven't done anything. Now, every nation has the ability to exert force, but if you're not specifically designing sort of that security apparatus, and you're not talking about a specific instantiation of where a conflict might arise, which is one of the most studied areas in all of social science. And you can look up Peter Zehan for this if you like YouTube. Then what you're doing is just xenophobia. It's saying that, well, they're taking what's ours and they're going to be violent because they do this. And it's
That
really
is
just
not at all
recycling
what I
the
was
same.
saying.
No, I'm not done. All it's doing is recycling the same points that the far right, conspiratorial, uneducated, bigoted, selfish, snake oil salesman, far right YouTube says. And so
are you gonna sit here and claim that China has not been openly hostile to Taiwan, its various neighbors, and that it has gone against U.S. national interests?
No, because you're asking me to find a context, and I don't fucking.
No, I'm not asking you to find a context.
If you're gonna put information out,
everywhere.
You work for the audience. You work for the other panelists.
Get BTFO'd, nerd.
You do the legwork. No.
The answer is yes. It has been openly hostile to its neighbors, such as doing.
No, start a makeup channel then. Orthodox.
I already have.
Start a makeup channel. You came on here to debate politics.
I already have a makeup channel, bro. Dress up, faggot.
Whoa! Hey, see, there it is.
Hey, easy.
Nope.
Easy. No, we don't do that here. Okay.
That's TOS.
That's TOS.
Yeah, that's why I bit my tongue. For respect.
Yeah.
No, you just use the
I don't care about it. I don't care about being TOS. Like I think it's fucked up.
It's still a bad. It's still
even if it wasn't TOS, I would still ask you not to do it here. So don't.
Yeah.
No, it's for respect for the host.
Yeah. I'm gonna take off, Ryan. I left a panel yesterday because someone said the N-word. I'm not gonna be on a panel with Orthodox guy while he's.
Bullshit! You sit at flows all the time when fucking.
Yeah, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, bitch.
Cunt.
Why don't you suck my dick, you bitch?
You gotta have a dick first.
Great stuff. All right. Well,
I mean, I can do ad hominem as well.
We got 10 people. Hang on, I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. Let's see if we can get anyone else who wants to come up. Please
I'm sorry for
that. That showed me everything I needed to know about that guy.
He was upset at me that I would. He's upset at me that I won't answer his questions.
Yeah.
In back channels.
I mean,
he asked me like 1,000,001 questions on flows and tomatoes.
I sympathize with his leaving for that, but I mean, whatever. I guess if
here's my thing.
He got blown the fuck out.
Here's my thing though.
I don't feel like this will happen.
Here's my thing, Ryan.
He was wrong on every account.
Here's where I come out on Ryan. Is this if I presented myself in a certain way, and then in very nuanced, passive aggressive ways, said things and did things that countered what that image was, I'd have to either think one or two things. You're either a manipulative piece of shit, or you're a fucking pathological piece of shit. Either way, I don't like those type of people.
Can you be more specific about how like he presented himself? And
well, he was like, because he has
like,
that meek and minor. Well, hi, you know, I want us all be, and then he's like, fucking dog shit. Like, I mean, you could tell there was.
I mean, I can turn on time like that too.
There was like a microaggression aspect to like what he was saying, the Orthodox guy, and I'm not saying like.
What do you mean by microaggression? You mean passive aggressive?
He was, but yeah, it was passive aggressive, but it was small little bursts is what I'm trying to say of it, and so.
Yeah.
And I get it. Hey, I get it. Like if you don't have to like anybody. Like if there's somebody that says something or does something and you have a personal animus against it, I'm fine. But don't like come off and try to be mild manner and try to like talk and say things in a certain way and then try to like that to me just it speaks of something where you're being dishonest or you're
it feels like you're kind of like pathologizing it. Like in a way that doesn't feel intuitive to me, but
it may not be intuitive to you. But let me tell you something, Ryan. I've dealt with a lot of people like this, and what I'm just saying is this:
I've dealt with a lot of people as well.
And I'm not saying you haven't. I'm just saying that have that kind of issue where they like to present one side, and to me is this. I'm willing to go back and forth on what I think you're right and wrong about Trump or anything else in the world. And I think you and I are both people who would just say, let's just leave the topic at hand on the table and let's digest to what the topic is, right? And understand that. Yeah. So, but there are people who then try to use dog whistles and try to do things and say things to other people that trigger them. And then they try to like gaslight them, and I see those type of tactics in someone, and I'd say, you know, yeah.
Well, it's not that.
Well, real quick, Orthodox, before you go, I also sometimes. I mean, first of all, I think from what I understand about Duck, and I've seen him on a lot of different panels. It feels to me when he's using words like xenophobia and stuff, like it seems like he's very intentional with the language that's being used. And thank you. Oh, hell yeah. Look at this.
Yeah.
We got Sarah the Raging Tomato coming in with the 1999. Love that. Love her. What a queen. Huge shout out. I mean, everyone here, I know everyone watching is already subscribed to Sarah, so I don't have to say it. But if you are somehow not, please go give her some love. Seriously. She's been bringing me on her panels since like 2021. Like we've been, or 2022 at least. Yeah. 2022. That's what it was. It's been over 3 years now, or about 3 years. It's crazy. But yeah, much love to Sarah. Really appreciate that.
No, I understand. Anyway. I mean, and there's no denying there's intention there, and that he's dealing with an issue.
Sorry, let me finish what I was saying. Yeah. So, like I think that he's very intentional with those words. I am as well, but I also am someone who will use words like xenophobia or racism. I'll use these words intentionally because I think they're the right words for what I'm talking about, and because I know that they're provocative in a way that is going to inspire people to ask or to present like contentious. People are going to get quote unquote triggered by it, but they're going to react to it and start. They're going to force a conversation. I'm trying to force a conversation by getting that reaction. So I'm not gaslighting people by pointing out like that I think something's racist.
But you do realize that people do gaslight people by doing that, right? You do realize that.
Well, it's specific. Look, it's specific. It's specific.
But I think more often it happens from people. I think more often there's people who are gaslighting about their act, like they're actually being racist and they're upset that people are calling what they're doing racist, and a lot of people aren't willing to engage with the fact that they're doing something racist. I think that's more common.
I think that last part is BS. I think if someone is being racist intentionally, they won't care.
Yep.
But here's the thing: it's not that deep, gentlemen. Me and Doug have a history. He asked me questions on flows, and then again on Sarah's in the back chat, and I ignore him or I tell him to do his own research, and he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
And I don't do it to be rude. I just don't care to inform you. If you're curious about something, it is always better for you to not just listen to someone or their definition, but to do your own research, and that's why I do it. And tonight is the first time that he's ever been openly hostile, but it makes sense. Me and him have a history. Like I said, he doesn't have this. He doesn't have that energy on flow states or anywhere else I've been, and he tends to.
I mean, I don't mind that energy, but let's pause for a second. I want to respond to this chat. So, for someone new to this channel, could you briefly explain what it's about, or is this debate focused on a specific topic? We're kind of following up on some other conversations that happened on Sarah, the Raging Tomatoes channel earlier. But what I do here, what I'm, I guess, starting to do, I'm probably going to do more panels like this because this is actually something I find very comfortable to navigate. But in general, I do a lot of debates. I've showed up on a bunch of different debate channels over the years, arguing with mostly people on the far right, sometimes people on the moderate right. And giving a progressive perspective on things. But I also am a educator. I teach programming or coding and math and science. And these are things that I'm also very passionate about. I don't only want to talk about Trump defying the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, that is happening. So I think it's important to talk about so that I can eventually spend more time focusing on things like math and science that I think are much more fun to talk about, but are unfortunately damaged by the political conversations or the political realities, and which is why I think those conversations are important. But anyway, go ahead. Whoever wants to take it.
That was funny because when you said that reminded me. Have you ever seen the miniseries John Adams?
I've not.
On HBO. He came out some years ago, but I remember the part where the guy that plays John Adams and he goes to France, and they're all about art and in philosophy and all these things, and they're like, why don't you want to study art or philosophy? He's like, I want to study mathematics and I want to study navigation and I want to study like these things and warfare so that my kids have the freedom to be able to study philosophy and arts. I was like,
I agree. And I'll to that point. I mean, I think that one of the things that draws me to politics is similar to the kinds of structural undertones that draw me to art and science and these things. So it is. I mean, law is definitely an art. I've called the Constitution like a beautiful work of legislative art. Like it really is what it is. It's a foundational one, but it really is like an artistic thing, in a sense. But yeah.
But I so just so you all know, I am not. I'm probably more in a more classical or more traditional sense of what people would call conservative, but I'm not conservative. I don't go by conservatism or liberalism. I don't go by any of those. I'm not.
Fair. I usually consider myself to be somewhat left of liberals, but I do believe in like liberalism as I believe in the institutions of America. Right,
which are liberal institutions,
right?
Which are liberal institutions.
Yeah, and I believe that those institutions have the capacity to not only give all of us who already have a decent life here a better life, but they have the capacity to give even more people who don't have the greatest life a better life. And I would like to see us go more in that direction. And this is one of the concerns I have about presidents like Trump. I feel like they do the opposite. They encourage a lot more people to have more dehumanizing views of each other.
Do you only have an issue with them when they're supposedly right wing and they're shitty? Because that's
no.
What
I mean,
like.
I'm happy to criticize Biden, but he was like the most progressive president in my lifetime. Like, I mean, what are things that you would want to hear me critique about Joe Biden that you think like?
Well, if you don't have a problem, I mean, that's fine. Like, for example, if someone like Hassan thinks Hamas should fucking win a peace. I mean, what can you say to someone like that, right? That says they have no problem with Hamas, right? Like that.
Well, I mean,
so if there are people where you're ingrained in that kind of axiom, then there really isn't any point in trying to tell you what that problem is, because that goes back to what Orthodox guy's point was originally, which is the tribalism.
Yeah, chill. But when you say that, like Hassan said, like I don't think I've ever heard Hassan say that there's no problems with Hamas, that he has no issues with them.
I've heard it. He's agreed with them. He says he thinks they're being forced. He's being the force.
Hang on.
That isn't the point. That isn't the point.
Agreeing that Hamas is saying that Hamas is like a resistance and to Israel is not the same as saying that he agrees with everything and has no criticism of them, which is what you said initially. That was the axiom you laid out.
He says he has he had no problem with them. Have you not seen?
He's literally said he has no problem that they have to do what they have to do to win against a colonizer state.
Yep.
He's literally said that.
Yep.
And he's literally said that children are valid military targets.
I feel like I've also heard Hassan say things condemning Hamas for certain actions, but I mean,
look,
maybe you're right. So
I'm not mad. I'm not
Hassan. Listen, I want to be. I would much rather be the himbo leftist on YouTube. Okay, I'll happily take the crown. Like fuck Hassan. But like I just haven't heard him say those specific things. So.
I only hate him because Hezbollah is better. I want to be real.
Jeez.
but you know, so that's my point. Is so for example, if you were to talk to some like I'll give you an example. So I'm on Twitter. I saw somebody make a tweet about because you heard about the White House posting that thing with Pope as the or Trump as the Pope thing. You know, you saw that little. It's triggered a lot of people, but and I saw one lady's tweet, and she said, "Well, he would be better than most of the Trump because he loves America and he loves God." And it's like the most generic, like most watered down basis for like what would make you a Christian, period. Let alone whether it would qualify you for something considered, you know, by people in that organization or that community about what should be higher statuses for that. And like, so at that point, when you deal with something like that, you're not going to be able to convince them of the problems of Trump, right? If they really believe Trump is a savior type of person, they believe he is a great guy that can do no wrong, and then and has everything he's doing has a legitimate response to things that are bad on the opposite side. Telling someone where they got wrong is going to be you know, I can't tell you, hey, how he did something, because as soon as I tell you what he did wrong, you're going to think, and then you'll connect it to something where you'll either connect it back to Trump, or you'll connect it to something where you might say he did. And again, at that point, there really is no point in saying those kinds of things. So for me, like, what I want to engage in is I want to engage in the old school liberals, because you said you were born in what, 92 or something like that?
92, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to, so my first election that I voted in, Ryan, was the 2000 election. Okay. And I was one of these people who was an idiot voting for Bush, because I thought Bush was a conservative Republican type of thing. And I didn't realize the type of warmonger he is now. Of course, Democrats love him because they think he's better than Trump, even though Trump is a more peace. He's worse than Trump will ever have been. He's committed more war crimes than Trump ever has. So, but the thing of it is that is
not a war crime the first time, baby.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but
it's not a war. War crimes don't exist. They're merely suggestions on how to win combat quicker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I got you. Okay, we're gonna have to disagree on that. But okay,
brother, if we can have a whole debate on this, because if you're gonna bitch about war crimes, they don't exist.
Okay, well they do. But I mean, you might not agree with them. You might not agree that they're like not. Like you might like
war is the most hellacious thing.
Hang on, slow down.
You're gonna
try to
lick.
Calm down, Orthodox. Calm down. There are things that people okay, well let me talk then. There are things that people describe as war crimes. There are definitions for these things. So there are it's not like they're not real. Like the things that you might say that those things are actually okay to do, right? You might disagree with their classification as war crimes, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, right?
You only get charged for war crimes if you lose, buddy.
That's a very cynical way of looking at it, Orthodox guy, but I get you.
It's because I've had to defend myself.
There's some truth to it, but I don't think that's the world I want to live in. So.
Yeah,
it's not a war. It's not a. No one should want to live in a world where there's war, but there's always going to be war.
Right. So
war in of itself is a crime against humanity.
Right. Exactly.
And what would you want? Would you want to have these tactics that you can?
Yeah.
Would you not want to have these tactics be allowed where you can end it quickly and efficiently and break their will?
No.
So you would want to you would potentially
because to me that is the kind of bullshit that led us to the atomic bomb. That's the kind of bullshit that leads you to think, hey, yes, it does.
Technological progression in general. There will always be a propensity to use technology as weapons.
I know, because people have that same.
we just went on so fast, like and my I do this, my brain also does this, like jumping.
I'm autistic. I do apologize.
I'm very ADHD. I'm sure there's a lot of neurospicy in these YouTube communities. Okay, and no shade.
Well, I tend to be a very anti-pragmatist person, so that's why I'm very much.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm ultra pragmatist.
I know you are. I know.
Can you both give what do you each mean by that?
Whatever is the best and most efficient solution is what we should use. Essentially, whatever is the most efficient is what we should do.
Like in just every context.
Yes, whatever is the most
So-
efficient use of time, resources, and whatever.
Wouldn't you think that there are probably like different metrics of efficiency that might be like that might have trade-offs in different scenarios?
So, well, for instance, I have to ask you a question because I don't, my brain is not processing the question.
Yeah.
For instance, if
Yeah.
I am having a war that is dragging on, and we're playing at war, we're being peaceful, we're not total war, we're just shooting at each other in trenches, right? And we can't win, and I have men dying and people dying. I'm having to write mothers and all these emotional arguments, shit, right? And this shit is just dragging on our economy, dragging on our citizens' well-being. But then all of a sudden, the scientist runs in and goes, "Hey, I have this magical spicy air that if we
You're
just
probably gonna
throw
use
it at them, it'll kill the hell out of them, but the war will be over by Christmas."
Yeah,
Should I
yeah,
not
and
use it?
and they'll die in one of the most awful ways known to man.
Yeah, well, dying in combat in general is awful. Like,
It's not
imagine,
great.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it
I
is,
understand what
it
you're
is.
saying.
But there are ways. I'm sorry, but there are. You so if you want me to, I'll dig a little trench for you, and then I'll make sure I'll put some mustard gas in there for you, and then you tell me how great of a vacation you're having compared if I just fucking shot you in the chest, right?
That's the thing. That's the thing, John. If I'm fine with it being used against our guys or even myself, it is what it is.
I know that's
Well,
why that's because you're a pragmatist. I get it. I understand that. But pragmatism has no room in a philosophical value system which I held. So that's why I uphold it, because almost all the worst decisions in mankind come about as what's the best way of doing it, right? That's why I say I am the theological Ian Malcolm, right? I am the philosophical Ian Malcolm, who's here to say that just because you can fucking make dinosaurs doesn't mean you should, bitch. That's the whole point.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I'm sympathetic to the view that there are. I want there to be probably more humane ways to wage war, which is a weird sentence to say, but
it is because war is
oxymoronic.
It is moronic.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, no, it is.
But,
it is.
but well, I think I would have to. I kind of want to do more reading on this. On those, like how those specific rules like came to be set up. So I don't necessarily want to dive in.
Yeah, that's
to,
fine.
Like,
that's fine.
And make any position on that or anything. But I think it's a very interesting conversation.
Me and you,
but so
me and you are the. I'm sorry, I don't mean to overtalk you. I'll say this and then I'll mute for a while. Me and you could talk more about this specific subject because I guarantee you, I'm not going to talk my politics, but me and you are the exact opposite politically.
You and Ryan, you mean?
Me and you?
Yes. So I think it would make a fun. I think it'll make a fun discussion.
Yeah. Well, there's things that I'm very opposite about with Ryan as well, but I also think that there are certain philosophical undertones that we would agree with, that we would define as certain arbitrary, what's the word I'm looking for? Not arbitrary, but certain undeniable human moral standards,
maybe
fundamentals about things. And I think those things tend to be more ingrained in liberal ideas. That doesn't mean that most people who are liberal these days or identify as liberals actually even still keep those liberal ideas, because the most intolerant people I know today fly a liberal flag because they're not liberal, for that matter. They're regressive is what they are, not progressive. So
who are you describing when you say that?
I'm talking about anybody who would go like who become so ingrained in their ideology that when somebody else they want to be able to force churches to pay for fucking abortions or for birth control, or they want to be able to when a parent exercises some type of concern for their child being exposed to material that they find, they're like, "You're a fucking asshole and a hater," and any kind of tolerance that they would have goes away, because to them, the tolerance is only for a standard which they and others like them uphold, and anybody that's outside of that doesn't. And that's what's wrong with liberalism, because it shouldn't be that way. I mean, it's understandable that we see more gatekeeping in conservatism, because conservatism by its very nature is meant to be gatekeeping. That's why the more like traditional.
I have to ask. I have to. Is it gatekeeping or is it having an established standard?
Well,
I hear a lot of people complaining.
Yeah, you would call it an established standard. I can understand that. I would say there's a lot
Well,
of
no,
it is gatekeeping.
there's gatekeeping. There's the no true Scotsman fallacy where you sit here and go, a real da wouldn't do this, but that's not a stand. That's not adhering to a established standard.
Right. No,
And
but
then-
what I'm saying by gatekeeping is so I will say this to you, Orthodox guy. There are a lot of good things. Like this is something like in a more rooted traditional conservative idea where you'd say, like, to quote G.K. Chesterton, don't tear down a fence until you know why it was put up in the first place, right? And there's an understanding that there are legitimately guardrails and fences that are put up for a system, and that so you can't just say, okay, once you cross this threshold, you can still remain certain. Like you have to, you can still keep certain things and not. Obviously, when you adapt to something or go to something, you have to be able to conform to it, right? If you don't, then you're not truly something that falls into that. But there are times where the gatekeeping happens because conservatives tend to be more concerned with purity and the purity of something, whether it be the purity of doctrine, the purity of ideology, the purity of what is orthodox, what is whatever, and those kinds of things then become more, whether they're intentional or not, become more evident. Whether they're all bad, I'm not going to say they're not bad. I'm just saying it's just an evident of the case.
Well, I don't have anything to say for once. I was playing half sword. Sorry. I was paying attention, but
Yeah,
instead
you're
of
good,
formulating an argument,
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I was
You're
stabbing people with my war crime stick.
Good for you.
But Ryan, this is why I can't have any good friends, because I piss off liberals and conservatives all the same. So I don't.
So do I.
I don't fit in these little checkered marks. That's why in fact, I remember I angered a lot of my friends when when DOMA came out, when they were pushing DOMA.
Doma? I don't.
Do you not? Maybe you were too. I don't know. But when it was back in, was it 2008? When they had the Defense of Marriage
I
Act.
wasn't. Oh, okay. What's your issue with that, or your
So when you saw a lot of conservatives, they were trying to push the idea of quote unquote traditional heterosexual marriage, and they wanted it to be like a constitutional thing, right? Remember, they were trying to push, and they were pushing the Defense of Marriage Act, and to try to make it a constitutional thing, that the Constitution define what marriage is, which is not within the tenure of what the Constitution's job is supposed to do. And so I said to all these people, I said, you guys bitch about like what you call big government, but like now you want the government to enforce this idea because you like this idea. And people are just like, but why don't we do this? This is the power. I said, because then you ruin the Constitution, because and I told them, and they didn't like this, but I said, if you push for DOMA to be a constitutional thing, it's no different. Now, the reality affected to it is different. Obviously, I'm not saying that the ideas or the philosophies attached to them are the same, but I said the effect of what would happen is no different than what happened when they passed Roe v. Wade, and how that affected the Constitution, and how it was a terrible a standard on which they put into the Constitution on the basis of something that had nothing to do with fucking privacy in the first place.
Well, we can disagree about that as well, but it's interesting. I do find.
What'd you say, Orthodox guy?
He said you're right for the wrong reasons.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's your panel.
No, you're fine. I find the interesting phenomenon, like what you're describing. I definitely see a lot of people, the like conservatives who will push for that kind of those kinds of laws that like control like what marriage is, but they also like want the government out of marriage and stuff.
They want the government not to dictate what their churches do, which is, but like
that's plain and simple, because marriage is not a governmental institution.
Exactly.
It's a religious institution.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the whole Defense of Marriage Act came about because there were a bunch of people who wanted their partnerships to be catered and done by Christian businesses, and they have the right to discriminate based on being a business. If they don't want to take you on as a customer, they don't have to, and they
Right. And
so
instead of,
so actually, the Defense of Marriage Act would have put that in the Constitution that is okay. So excuse my stupid grug brain of saying put that, whatever.
I understand what you're saying, but my problem with that was this, and this is what it comes down to, is when you're trying to meet, even if it has for a good intended purpose, when you're trying to meet or you're trying to protect something from happening as a negative consequence, and you put it then therefore as a constitutional matter, because again, the whole point of the Constitution was never to insert our individual rights. It was to limit what the government could do as regards to us as individual citizens and how it would restrict itself in other matters.
Let me put a pause there. Not only was it for the government, it was specifically for the government.
Yes,
But
exactly.
Supporting document also dictates wherever tyranny comes.
Exactly.
So if you have a corporation that begins to own everything, the whole it's a private company doesn't matter.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's how, if you're a private citizen and you lock somebody up, and that's why you can go to jail for violating their constitutional rights, and you can't beat that through a conservative's brain.
Right. No, you can't. And so then you get to this point where now what you're doing is you're changing and you're editing and you're affecting what the Constitution is on the basis of trying to protect something that would be seen. And here's the reality is, with the exception of a few cases where you could probably actually prove it, right? Like where there's an issue of somebody showing outright discrimination. The problem with that is, and always will be, that when they were doing that, like it wasn't just that, it was also the idea of when you're asserting these things and you're trying to bring some kind of case law or try to bring some kind of lawsuit as a result of it, then of course now we're having to change the whole thing, because then what then becomes then the next thing we have to defend, and it just opens up a can of worms and it actually, this is why I was trying to explain to my conservative friends. I said, you guys don't like it when the liberals say it's a living fucking breathing document, right? But this would make it a living breathing document. And so it would give it more power to be, just like with Roe v. Wade, it would give it more power to be understood in a more transitive way.
The issue with not being pragmatic, or with not being pragmatic, and the issue of you being philosophical, and if everyone's philosophical and one side wasn't, right, is the side that is not philosophical but the side that's pragmatic will win.
Of course they will.
You're like, well, I don't like that you're doing it, but as long as you're doing it under the Constitution,
I know, and this is where I would imagine you or other people with who I'm assuming
would die for your rights,
right? Like so for example, like this is kind of where this idea, like what Andrew Wilson says when he talks about the idea of force with government, right? And the idea of rights then therefore being enforced. And so the question comes into this place. Yeah, if there's no one to force that, then no one's going to. But to me, I'm not looking at the issue of force, or whether for that issue, whether it becomes something that becomes practical, or whether it has an impact for society or not, because I don't give a shit about that. What I give a shit about is the personal integrity of one's, especially my philosophy, and the personal integrity that I have with my religious values attached to those. And that's why I have to.
That's very noble, but what good is it when you're lined up against the wall and shot?
Then I'm shot. Then I'm dead. Then I'm shot. Then I'm dead. My hope is not in this world. It's in Jesus Christ. That's where my hope's at.
I think me and you are gonna agree here, Ryan. You go ahead.
Like I feel like I don't think that there's like I found the way you described pragmatism real, like with like the most efficient thing, but like I find that kind of vague, which is like one of my frustrations that I felt there. But like, I mean, in general, I do want to find things that work better towards a particular goal. But I think the goal is the context of the goal changes what the efficiency, or what like allows efficiency in that regard. Like if we talk about war crimes, I think that we're trying to minimize a certain kind of behavior while maximizing while still maximizing like preferably quick war. If things come to war, we still want war to not last very long, ideally, but we want particular things to be off the table. But like that's because we're caring about a different metric. We're caring about the human suffering in that, like, of the process of being in the war, as well as just dying in war. So again, it's just we're looking at different goals. So maybe I do fall more into the pragmatist camp, I'm guessing.
I would understand that. I think most people would fall into a pragmatist. I am in a very very minority in this regard, and the reason why that is because of something that I'm concerned more than societal good, or anything that I'm more concerned of than anything that has to do with the benefit of people or anything like that. Because I don't have those type of utilitarian value systems, because to me, those systems get actually attributed when we as individuals work and improve on the things that we as individuals ought to improve on.
Well, utilitarianism isn't pragmatism. I have three things now.
But here's the other thing. So the other thing is that if you're trying to find a system that will help benefit things, and you're trying to think large scale solutions, I would say you have to think pragmatically, right? Like that would be that you can't deny that. That's the whole point. So I don't even deny the fact that you can't think pragmatically. That's why, like in government, like I understand why pragmatism would come into play.
Well, utilitarianism is the opposite of pragmatism. Sorry, I'm hyper focusing on that.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Like the dude who wrote the book on utilitarianism defines it as doing the thing that makes the most amount of people happy, not what is not pragmatic, or what is good.
Right. Okay. Fine. What I'm trying to say, though, Orthodox guy, is that there are people like Ryan who would have a philosophy that would say, I want to do what I think is the right thing to do to the best of individual sake, at the same time, while also dealing with a global issue which needs to be also dealt with. And in that regards, there are people who would have to think in terms of more pragmatic stances, because the more you expand that window of how you have to deal with things, you're forced to. And I don't deny that. I just say that my personal philosophy and my personal value system and belief system, I feel like those things are the very threat to the things which I believe everyone should strive for, and therefore, and also become an hindrance to an individual striving for those things. And so that's where the dynamic comes into play.
Well, John, I think that you hold on to that philosophical belief because no one is like, I don't know you, and this isn't a shot.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Nine times out of 10, the people that I know that hold on to this philosophical belief have either been removed from violence to the point that they've almost never experienced it outside of a fist fight or any real threat.
Okay.
Basically, when I said, lined up against the wall and shot, you've never been anywhere near that.
No, of course, and I would never pretend. I would never pretend to say that I was, or anything like that.
I think in the moment that you become anywhere near that, I think that your moral system would be gone like that.
You can definitely say that. You can definitely make a.
We don't know that.
You don't know that, right? But it's just and it's the same like when I deal with people. There's a particular YouTuber I know who does not believe in free will, and when I tell him that you can fucking have a hunger strike, you can actually fucking fast to the point of dying. People are like, well, you've never been hungry, so you would never fast. It's like, of course not. Sure. But the thing is the thing that would put you in the place to be able to do that takes a certain mental and spiritual fortitude. And no one knows the experiences that I've had. And I can tell you this, because of my life and some of the things that I've experienced, some of the problems I've had to deal with, I know I've been able to express that and feel that and do those things in those microcosms ways. That's why, to me, you're right. Like, obviously, I would never make a judgment. That's why I don't make a judgment on people who do that. I'm not even declining to say, like, well, why a lot of people would be in a position to be that way. That's why I'm striving for that, because I would say I want to remind myself every day of that, because if I ever did get into that situation. But the thing of it is again, you're right. That doesn't dispute the point that it's not something that I don't
before
think
we go into whatever next thing. Okay, I want to pull back a little bit, because I feel I think these are interesting conversations, but they're I don't know if vapid is the word
you can
that
think
I
they're
want to
vapid.
use, but it's not vapid in the sense that, like, I don't think they're interesting, you know. I don't think, or that I don't think they're even valuable to have. It's so what I found very interesting that I wanted to kind of follow up this thread earlier. It seems like all three of us here, even though you guys both seem to, I assume, are a little bit more on the, like, conservative side of things.
Okay.
Is that fair? Orthodox guy? Am I characterizing you right? I don't know that much about you.
It depends on the situation. It really is fluid,
Okay.
because I am
Fair enough.
very progressive on some things.
Yeah.
Are you both? You're both Americans?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like both of you agreed early on in this stream that Donald Trump should be impeached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that something that you think is worth pushing for? Like, would you contact your representatives and tell them that you think they should be pushing for that? Like, do you have Republican representatives in Congress?
Not in my state. I live in a blue state.
And I live in Georgia, and no, I won't
Okay.
be doing that, because even though
Why
I
not?
think it's within the right of Congress to impeach him for questioning and
Yeah.
pushing through the excuse me, it's kind of getting late. For trying to
That's
push
fine.
through the Supreme Court and go against the Supreme Court.
And
There
lie about it.
are, well, politicians lie. They all lie. I don't
Yeah,
care
but
about
he's
that.
very explicitly lying about this specific ruling. So, but
Was
this
it
is why
was
I'm
he?
bringing it
Was
up.
he?
Well, but that's
Okay, hold on, wait. Hold on,
that's
wait.
your-
It matters. It matters only if he was under oath. Was he under oath when he specifically lied?
I guess he wasn't. I mean, he's the
Okay,
president, so
then
in
it
theory,
completely
that's
does not matter to me. So the
okay.
reason I
Well,
would not push for that is
Yeah.
even though I don't like him, I don't like his policies. I agree with him for totally different reasons about the most important things to me, and he's a
Which
means to
are?
an end for me.
So
Reigniting.
wait, before you answer that. So what you're saying is you don't think, or you wouldn't use your political influence, as minuscule as it might be. I mean, and we're all individuals here. We're just little dudes.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't use the little push you have to encourage Congress to take action against a president that is defying the Supreme Court, even though you think that they should take action in that case. Because of other things that you want Trump to do, you think it's
Other things.
we just established how pragmatic he was, right?
Like
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm just trying to get this out. Like, yeah, in your
there are specific things for the
outline it for me.
American people. There are specific agendas that me and Trump align on that I want for the American people, because I think they would be best. And I don't care about him lying. It's the job, like I said, it's the job of the president to challenge the authority of Congress and the Supreme Court, and vice versa for all three branches. That's why they're called. That's why they're checks and balances. And it's better. We're better as a nation if they all continue to challenge each other's authority. Makes us stronger as a nation. So we know.
Real quick.
And go ahead.
I can agree with that to a degree. Like, I actually kind of hold that Donald Trump's presidency is going to be a really hard civics lesson for Americans. It has been for me, and a very hard and fast, like, we're about to learn all of the weird odds and ends and gray areas that have been left exposed because we have a president who's really willing to lean into those as heavily as possible. But I don't want a president who's stretching the Constitution as far as it can go. I like the Constitution. I don't want to see how far you can stretch it before it rips. I like it existing. I don't want it to rip. You see what so like my pragmatics would include not wanting.
Let me test you on that. Do you first of all, are you an American citizen?
I sure am. Yeah.
Okay. I was making sure because I didn't know. So
yeah,
secondly,
there's a lot of Canucks out here. I got you.
No, I don't know.
That's the true. That's the true foreign influence.
It really is.
But
Jordan Peterson.
So let me ask you this: do you believe in over top-down gun control?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm generally I'm okay with restrictions or things that would make it harder to get guns, but not things that I definitely don't like things that take guns away from people who already have guns legally. I would never support stuff like that because I think it's very dangerous.
Right, because a lot of people would say
my dead body
that you can stretch the Constitution by how Biden defines. Because Biden was the one that tried to put in a semi-automatic handgun ban or the semi-automatic gun bill, and I don't know if you realize this because a lot of people, especially Democrats, don't know this, but fucking 95% of all guns are semi-automatic, right? You know that, right?
Yeah, no, I do understand.
So the point is I just want to make sure you're good on that standard because a lot of liberals and a lot of people who say they advocate for the Constitution are okay with it if it means something else. And so again, and I would say,
let me take that point.
Yeah.
Before we go on from there, because I do think that we can argue that's an example of a Joe Biden type playing with a gray area, right? Of the Constitution. What I'm saying in contrast to that is I'm not saying that Joe Biden doesn't do this, that Democrats never use these gray areas for anything. What I'm saying is that Trump is making gray areas the foundation of his presidency.
He's pitched a tent in there and he's fucking roasting marshmallows in the gray area.
Almost every executive order Project 2025, which is what he's executing, to be clear, this is something that lives in those gray areas and is built out of those gray areas. And the reason it is because it's looking to stretch and break the Constitution in specific ways. But it's doing that in so many different domains that we can't be in all places at once to handle the fallout. When it comes to the gun stuff, I'm confident that there are enough legislators and executive, people in every branch of government that care about the Second Amendment. And even, even Biden,
even though we had an ATF that had a bump stock that was literally going beyond their
bump stock ban, right?
Well, not even that. I'm just gonna. The reason I didn't want to bite my tongue earlier and I kept trying to interrupt.
Go ahead.
The Second Amendment question is already a bad question for this anyway because it's already been stretched.
I know.
With the automatic weapons ban back in the 1920s, you should be able to own and I don't. And there is no limit. There is no limit. Even I know it sounds retarded, but as the Constitution was formed, even nuclear weapons, there is no limit. Anything our military has access to, the private citizen should be able to have.
And then
wait, hold on. They didn't know about automatic weapons, but there was the buckle gun.
Yeah,
you can say they didn't mean artillery, but citizens own field cannons and warships.
They did. Yep, they had the blunderbuss. Yep.
I disavow Americans owning nukes. Okay, I don't think this is a
I don't think it is either. I do think there needs to be some restrictions, and I think
right. But we're testing the idea of how far we want something stretched and why. And I think you did a pretty decent job of hitting that point, though, Ryan. So
but it's not just. Hang on, it's not just that this is an example of that. Again, it's what other examples are there of Joe Biden stretching the Constitution in the ways that Trump does on a daily
Well,
basis.
it's
Oh, you
typically
mean with
not-
the COVID?
It's typically, wait, the thing is, it's
With
typically
COVID,
not
Trump
been
was
the
in office during
president.
COVID.
Well, the
No,
thing
no,
is-
no, 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 no.
The
Wait,
shutdowns happened under Trump.
Hold on. It was typically, it's typically not the president
What?
that stretches the Constitution. It's typically Congress.
Yeah,
And or the
Congress is
unelected
usually the ones, yeah.
bureaucrats.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
like
Typically not
Congress can make laws changing the Constitution.
Yes, but they haven't. And
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They know that if they do, that would be disastrous for their career, and they never have.
Yeah.
So they've let unelected bureaucrats make rules on it. Going back to the Second
Or
Amendment,
letting the
purpose of
executive branch do it right now.
well, you know, they started it with letting unelected bureaucrats do it. So,
Well,
the simple
you
fact
mean
of the
bureaucrats
matter,
put in place by elected officials, like systems that bureaucrats.
if unelected
existed in
bureaucrats
were
can make you a
established.
felon overnight, then I don't care if they were.
Yeah,
If they were.
yeah, it
if
doesn't
they were
matter. It
appointed-
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they were appointed by someone. The fact that you can
Well,
have an ATF
legally it
make
doesn't
start trying to arrest people because of the whole bump stock thing with the disability, like that right there goes to show you that we have agencies that go out beyond their
See, Trump won because
legally it
liberals
doesn't
like
matter,
your-
though.
Well, Trump won, and Trump is allowed to do this with at least 50% of the population's approval. Because
32% of the population
it doesn't matter.
of the
It doesn't matter.
eligible voters, 26% of the population. It doesn't matter because that means that there's a shit ton of people who are not actually on board with what's happening right now. And
If
we
they
don't have to
weren't, if
endorse
they
it
weren't
anymore.
on, if they weren't on board with it, there would be riots in the streets.
yes. Yeah.
I mean, there are
Either they're politically,
More than
either
the
they're
lame pussy hat bullshit.
well, the thing is,
boomer liberal, like, oh my god.
there would
wait,
be.
wait,
Here's the
isn't-
thing: either they're politically apathetic,
Yeah.
or they're extremists. You know, and
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying is,
I don't
The
think.
Second
I think that
Amendment-
what they're hang on real quick. I think what they're trying to do, what these hands off protesters, which I have a lot of respect for, and which I intend on joining. Like these are people who are going out and expressing to their representatives that they are not okay with what's happening, and they want those representatives to speak up. And there are Republicans also, like Lisa Murkowski, who have recently started to come around. First admitting
Murkowski's not
that
a
she was
Republican.
scared. Well, I mean, she sure wasn't until now, right? Like she's like one of the longest standing. She's been Republican for 20 years. What are you talking about? She's not a Republican.
is she a
But,
Republican or is she a rhino?
Yeah, she's probably a rhino, like a McCain
yeah,
Republican
I
type.
mean, the
person.
stuff you were saying earlier would make you a rhino to MAGA. Like, so I mean,
No,
like,
it wouldn't because I'm not a rhino. I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, there are specific things to be considered a rhino.
Yeah.
There's a specific standard.
I think that a lot of MAGA considers people who are not MAGA to be.
Well, a
rhinos.
lot of
They're
MAGA's
Republicans are
retarded.
not MAGA.
A lot of MAGA
yeah, but
retarded.
those are the
That
people-
doesn't really prove the point, right? Like
A lot of them are the ones that Trump pardoned, and like they're and will do violence on his behalf.
Let's not get into
they're dumb,
the part.
let's not talk about
Hey.
pardons right now. Yeah, let's not talk about pardons. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Hunter Biden or some shit. Like who gives a
Not
shit?
even
Not just-
Hunter,
not just-
not even
not just
Hunter
that, not
Biden,
just
his
that, not
entire
just that.
fucking family being preemptively
Yeah.
pardoned. If you don't
Yeah,
see the
and
problem,
not
with
just that,
Trump
but
announced-
Fauci as well.
Because Trump said he was going to go after them. Like, he said he has a fucking hit list.
Well,
of
you know what?
political opponents.
You know what?
and
If
he
if
put an
Trump is
FBI director
Hitler-
who wants to follow that hit list.
if Trump is Hitler, and there's any
Nobody's calling him
inkling
Hitler.
of those people actually, I thought
was
you called
JD
him
Vance.
Hitler. My bad.
No,
Well,
he
you
has a
know,
hit
if
list.
they are, you know, first off, I gotta ask, is I find this very funny. You ask anybody who the most evil man in history was, it's always Hitler, but never smoked for Stalin or even Genghis Khan. And like,
No,
we
I
can
know
literally
that guy.
see how many
Yeah.
people Genghis Khan killed by his
Yep.
environmental impact.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
but
I mean, like the whole.
I don't want to diminish what Hitler did by
But
just saying.
you
these
do.
people are
You,
all the same,
you
but
diminish
then those
every
people are
other
also
evil
bad.
by constantly comparing.
Yeah, you do
everything to
demolish.
Hitler.
You do. Yeah. Because
Well, I'm not-
Stalin
again, I'm
killed
not-
way
I'm
more
not
people
saying
than
you're
Hitler did.
Stop saying
And
I'm
then
not
Mao
constantly calling him Hitler.
Zedong's
I'm
horrid
not even doing
thing.
that. So
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not you, but I'm talking about liberals in general. Anyway, we don't have to glorify Hitler here.
But
we're not going
here's the whole rub on the whole situation. So here's the thing, because I'm going to go back to this because I do got to get going here in a second. But because you said, well, why don't I do anything? Well, first of all, I am relatively apolitical, and the reason why is because I'm sorry, Ryan. I have lived. I'm going to give the old age bullshit, but you know what? I have lived long enough. I have been in this system where they say if you vote this way, if you do this way, this will be this will be this, and I've seen it all bore itself out. I've seen Republicans not do Republican bullshit. I've seen Democrats fail to do the things that they're doing. And so the things that I would principally vote with the Democrats with, they've abandoned long ago, and the things the Republicans once stood for is a mockery of itself. All of it is a mockery of itself.
Curious.
What's that?
How long ago did the Democrats
How long ago
abandon
what?
the things that you're how long ago did the Democrats abandon the things that you would want them
Well,
to
like
do?
they used to be against the pharmaceutical industry, and then as soon as fucking COVID came down, they were fucking like, yeah, I'm gonna jack off while giving myself the vaccine.
Yeah, but they weren't like anti-vaccine. But anyway,
No, yeah, no, but they were like with a vaccine that had relatively just been.
Go ahead,
we're going beyond the science on that, right?
Scientific evidence, but
we're going beyond the science, but we're talking not just about that. But
Wait,
we also
wait,
used to talk
wait,
about the fact
John,
that we used to be
John.
anti-war, and the fact that Obama was one of the most pro-war people of
Is
all
my
time.
mic on?
Yeah.
John, calm down, John.
Go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, just like first of all, questions. In the last elections, John, did you vote for Trump?
Did I vote for Trump?
Yeah.
You know, I did vote for Trump. Yeah. Unfortunately, I did vote for Trump.
Because I quite agree with what you're saying, but I feel like, this whole like election stuff, it's kind of BS. Like Democrat sucks, Republican sucks. For the next elections, I feel like just don't vote, because like it's just so bad. The elections is like it's all trash. Democrats are trash, Republicans are trash. Yeah. It's all so bad. Just don't vote the next elections, because I'll be honest, I won't be voting for the next US elections. I'm saying it now.
Yeah,
I just want to spread fear and anger. So I'm gonna vote for whoever the most divisive candidate is.
Yeah. There you go.
Be real with you.
I think.
So you obviously can game who I voted for the past two elections. And I'm gonna be dead ass. Those are my reasons.
Yeah.
Like if you care about free speech, if you care about capitalism, if you care about like the free market and free speech and all that, you cannot support Trump.
I don't care about those things.
Yeah. No, I'm saying
I don't care about the rules for radicals, so you can
I don't care about those
fire closer.
Like, what I cared about was that you can't elect incompetent people, and I'm sorry, Harris was one of the most incompetent politicians I've ever seen.
By what standard?
Was she? Wait,
what standard was she?
Was she even elected? Because you don't elect the vice president. That's an appointed position.
I voted for a ticket both times that had her name on it.
Yeah, you voted when you were voting.
She wasn't. Well, she was granddad, or maybe say grandmother. Didn't somebody want to use the right gendered term? Right. But no, she was the Democrat Party. I remember. See, I used to have friends. And I have some really good friends that are like, and I agree with a lot of them on some stuff. They're Bernie bros, and then they saw what happened with Hillary Clinton, and they just like forgot that what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders, and so they go, oh yeah, they did that, and then it's like, oh yeah, and then they forget they weren't even loyal to Biden in the end. They weren't even, like this is how bad they are.
Well, that's because the Democrats we're not a cult, right? Like we're not upset.
No. I know, but you guys don't also. You guys are not also for democracy. So let's just be.
You're not a cult of personality, but you are an ideological cult.
You are an ideological cult. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not what a cult is.
Different types of cult.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's cult. Yeah,
you can have an ideological cult.
You can have an ideological
cult, and you can have a cult of personality.
Yep. You can have cult personality. You can have religious cult.
They're very different. They manifest very differently. First of all. Second of all, I don't agree that I think that everything that happened with Kamala Harris taking over was reasonable and within the law.
Yeah. I just want to add to that.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Vic.
Sorry, I thought you were done speaking. I didn't mean to interrupt your thing.
No, it's okay. I mean, that was the main thing I wanted to get across. Like, it was all done legally. Like, it's not like it's not like they like stormed the Capitol.
She wasn't. I mean, she wasn't elected by the Democrat party. But that's okay.
Like when all over the world, everybody knows when you're voting for a president, the vice president will take over whenever the president is not available. If you don't know this, you should go and relearn how elections work, how the government work. Maybe some people might not be aware of that. But more importantly, there are things that Kamala Harris did wrong that are fair to criticize. You should be able to criticize everyone who's in power. It doesn't matter if they're left, center, or right.
I agree.
The problem is that when on one side you have a buffoon, and on the other side you have someone who occasionally make mistakes, it is insane to say that both are equally bad. In no
Yeah.
world is Kamala Harris at all close to how insane Trump is. If you care
Or
about
is
American
unqualified.
values, you cannot at all support Trump. Don't claim to care about things like free speech, about any like
well, the
He-
Democrat
at least John
don't
doesn't do
get
that.
me started on that.
anything
Don't get me started
that
on
A lot
at
of
that. You
people
all
know,
do.
relates to
Yeah.
American values,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
support Trump. Then
Yeah.
you're just a hypocrite.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing about it is, like I said, and I maintain this: the left is an ideological cult.
Yep.
The right is a cult of personality.
They are a cult of
And
personality.
the same thing. There's many arguments that you've made that can be made on the about Kamala Harris and da da da. I don't
Yep.
care to repeat them. I don't care
Yep.
to get involved because I think both sides are retarded. I'm
They
not.
are.
I'm not
Yep.
on the left or right in American politics.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
I have no
brave.
representation,
brave.
so I don't care.
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah,
I'm not.
It ain't
Right,
about
I-
being
and-
brave. It's
And
just
I'm
about
not.
my
I'm not.
opinion,
I'm
bro.
not somebody
I know, I'm
who's
making
just
fun of you, it's
been.
fine.
I'm
You're
not just
trying.
somebody who's been
Good try,
involved in elections in the last 4 to 8 years, where I've not had the ability to also see things unfold as well, and see how these things all go about the way they do. And look, I mean, the reality is people have different perspectives. They're going to like who they like. They're not going to like who they're not going to like. But they're going to see different things, and that's just what it is. I mean, I think it's absurd to say that. That you would think that one side represents one side over the other. I wouldn't say that. I would absolutely agree with you that Trump isn't a free speech president. But what president
problem-
really has been a free speech president anyways?
John, the problem
one's
with
been
an
as mad about it as
ideological
Trump.
cult, the problem with an ideological cult is they want accountability for everything except for people and things that support their ideology.
Yeah. Well, and that's why
the
you
issue.
can't. That's why you can't give them here's what your side does wrong, because they'll always see it as a apples to orange comparison. Whereas,
and then alternatively with MAGA, you can't say Trump is
Nope.
wrong for this because they'll go,
Nope.
but Biden.
yeah, right.
Okay,
Well,
guys,
not
slow
just
down.
that, but not just
I want to
that.
respond to this
But
comment real quick before we go into a bunch of shit. Okay. So this comment says, don't you think Trump deserves some credit for being one of the few leaders who truly stood up to communist China? His actions made the world more aware of just how deeply dependent it had become on China. I don't think that making criticisms of a country that are excessive or outside of the realm of reality, which I think is something that Trump does regularly, that I'm not going to give him credit for like asserting a bunch of things, even if some of those things might be true, which I think when we talk about dependence on China, like it's kind of it's vice versa. Like we're both kind of dependent on each other in a lot of ways, and I think that's a good thing because that means that both of us we don't have any interest in watching the other one collapse, right? Like that's, I mean, well, at least we did before, or that's the way it was working before. It's a little bit that's
John,
a little bit shaky right now.
See him proving my point.
Elaborate. Tell me that before I let Vic go. I want to see how I'm proving your point by saying that.
You said that earlier you said that you were left of a liberal. Anything that's left of a liberal would be a Marxist or something similar.
Yeah, I'm probably sympathetic to a lot of Marxist ideology.
Well, and again, a Marxism is a ideological cult, and communist China.
Pause. When you say it's, I'm not okay. So what I want you to do is outline what about my values that are that might be sympathetic to certain Marxist ideas. What makes me captured by an ideological cult by having some philosophical agreements with those underpinning values?
The fact that China is currently genociding a portion of its population, you didn't bring that up in your example at all.
He doesn't care about that, right?
Criticism.
Because they're a global partner.
Because you're captured in an ideology. Quite frequently.
Trump doesn't talk about the Uyghurs.
He has talked about the Uyghurs. Here's the thing about politicians.
In 2016, and talking about banning them from the U.S.
You want accountability for everyone but your ideology. You're proving
you're making a criticism of me that doesn't apply to the guy you're defending in the question.
I'm not defending Trump. I think Trump is garbage, bro.
Yeah.
I think Trump is retarded and dismantling our nation.
But you don't think that enough to want to do anything about it. You said you wouldn't even be willing to. Would you at least encourage other people? Hang on.
Nation.
Would you at least encourage other people to pressure your representatives who you're too cowardly to pressure? Would you at least push other people to pressure them?
I'm not cowardly. what he's doing benefits what I want inevitably.
He just established that. He established that.
No,
He
no, I
established that
understand he
whatever
said that. I
wrong,
understand he said that.
whatever wrong he
But I'm
thinks
saying
he's
that
doing, he's
but if
doing
Trump
enough
breaks-
right for him.
if Trump breaks the Constitution that is
Oh, praise
fundamental
the
for
God.
other things, I mean that's. I
What do you think my ideology?
Didn't I spend this past hour explaining why I think that Trump is at every corner, and you guys both conceded to this, that at every corner Trump is trying to do things that stretch the Constitution as far as possible.
I didn't
and
say
this
he
is likely
stressed the
to result in breaking
Constitution. You're assuming because I agreed with you that he
it. Okay,
should have.
I
There's
thought that,
that he has
my
been
bad.
and he's in conflict with the Supreme Court, that he has done things that are in contradiction of the Constitution. That means
Many
that
things.
it is to the degree that you think. I get it.
I think you can
Trump
question
is the
those
worst man in the world.
and
I don't care about
Only
that. I
Trump.
don't care about that.
Nothing else.
If JD Vance was doing it,
John,
I would be
hold
just
on.
as mad if JD Vance was doing it. I would be
Hold
just
on.
as mad if JD Vance was doing it, right? Like, do you
No, you
understand that?
weren't. No, you weren't. No, you
Well,
I
weren't.
would be. I
my
would be
thing-
if JD Vance was doing this.
You wouldn't be angry if it was somebody with your ideology doing
Yeah,
it. If
yeah, you
believed
would.
in.
Yeah, you would.
Do it did not define the Supreme Court. You don't think I would have any problem with somebody?
I'm sure- I'm sure-
I don't, because leftists
Like, this
leftists
is
have
insane.
done
Like,
this.
I'm sure you don't care.
No, they
Yeah, I'm
haven't.
sure you don't care. that the Democrats
I literally
are trying to
was
pass the
FDR
Supreme
not a
Court,
leftist?
right?
Yes,
FDR's a
he was.
leftist.
That's a threat
Yes,
to the Supreme
okay.
Court.
FDR,
That's a
okay.
that's a
FDR
threat.
was a
don't
leftist
you
for
think?
his time. Yes, he was.
That's a
Progressive
threat to
for
our
his time,
Supreme
maybe.
Court,
Yeah,
but you
but a
probably
leftist
No, he was a
never
leftist
once
for his
bitched
time.
about them trying to pack the Supreme Court by making Washington, D.C. a state. You probably don't bitch about the fact that the Democrats are trying to pack the fucking Supreme Court. You probably think it's a good idea. So
I'm willing to have conversations about
and you
those
can
things.
call it cowardice to try to obfuscate, but like I told you again, you don't know my politics, and I'm very obscure with them, and it serves my desire for
I'll
the
say
future
cowardly
of
about
this
them.
country.
well,
Huh?
and Orthodox guy, look what it just happened. It becomes about the whataboutism, which is that we can't just deal with one issue and then get into that one
Wait,
issue.
but that's
And
how we got here. Was you guys? What about it and me? When I
No,
brought
I
up the thing
didn't.
that I was upset
No.
about, you accused me of not complaining about like other stuff that you brought up the Uyghurs, you brought out the genocide. You said I'm not mentioning the
No,
genocide. You were literally doing
I
what about
merely
it.
said you prove. I merely
All right,
said you
let's let
proved
Vic
my
go.
point.
Let's let Vic go.
he just said you
guys-
proved
you
his
guys whine,
point
okay?
because
I'm
of
gonna let Vic
China.
go.
Yeah.
All right, calm down. Go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, just before I begin, I just want to check because I know John said he had to leave soon. I don't want to like keep you here if you had to leave. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you good or?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so I'll keep going. So, I was saying that. So earlier, like we're talking because I know Ryan's like quite far left. I'm a centrist, but I know earlier we were talking about like so on the left there's an ideological cult, and on the right is a cult of personality. But like I feel like one thing we can all agree on is that the left is always in fighting. The left, like every time, like I remember even AOC used to call out liberals for not being far left enough. On the internet right now, Hassan Piker, the biggest left-wing streamer on the with 2 million subscribers, that guy is always trashing Democrats over not being like Marxist because he's a Marxist-Leninist, and that right there proved that there is no ideological cult on the left because they are always in fighting over their ideological differences. Wait, I'm talking. I'm not done.
Okay, go ahead, Vic,
On
and
the
now I
right,
remember something.
on the right, you had Joe Rogan, Theo Von, Andrew Schultz, who were all these free speech advocates who were saying that we need to call out the people in power. When Trump went on there, they said nothing. They didn't make fun of him for anything. When Trump tried to silence Bill Maher over jokes, none of them said anything.
Do you understand how many infighting there is in
So
cults of
wait,
ideology?
I'm not done. My only point is, if you claim to care about all these values, if you really believe all this stuff you believe in here, you have to recognize that you are contradicting. You can't believe that the left is in fighting and that there is an ideological war, an ideological cult, because the entire disagreement. Like you can laugh like a retard, but
he's not laughing like a retard. He's laughing at someone who's saying,
I'm laughing at the fact that you're saying
I have no respect for anyone who votes for Trump because you guys fucked everything
you're a
up.
leftist and not a centrist.
Growing up, every time I heard about the US, it was always amazing. Now the entire world thinks you're a joke. And that's your fault. You voted for a retard, and now everyone thinks you're a retard.
Hey man, look, all
at least I'm not one saying retarded shit on you.
One of our flags is on the moon and the rest isn't.
Slow down with the R slurs. I don't like it, okay? I don't want to hear.
Your vote was retarded. You don't have to say retarded shit.
Stop
Your
it.
vote itself was
You're
retarded.
the
And now we're gonna,
My God, Vic.
the entire world's gonna make
you're
fun
so
of you guys for
ingrained
the
in your
next 4 years.
own bullshit that you can't even get your head out of it. I mean, it's
Well,
it's
no,
bad.
no. And I, the first point I would like to make is even the right wing, there's a ton of infighting.
Yeah, you
The
don't
whole
know about
headlines
Tucker
about MAGA
Carlson and
Civil
fucking
War.
Ben Shapiro. What kind
Like
of
They're
fucking
all-
the whole
yeah, but they all
MAGA
support
Civil
Trump.
War
Not
headline.
all of them supported Trump. All these fuckers supported Trump. Not one called Trump out. So you can't say there's a war, there's infighting in the right.
You
Yes,
can.
you
There's
can.
infighting in the
all
right.
these fuckers
can.
voted for
Again,
Trump.
ideological cult, not willing to take accountability.
But
when
you're
wrong.
right. But you're right. There was a little bit of a war. But see, people like Bernie Sanders and people who called themselves principled liberals, as soon as the Democrat DNC establishment came in and all the corporate people came in and people like George Clooney came in, they're like, "Yep, we don't give a shit. We don't give a shit about our principles because as long as you guys are going to do what you're going to do, yep." So
I don't
so
agree
you're
with that
right. I mean,
characterization
yeah, a
of
lot of
Bernie. I
liberals
think-
have sold out their own principles. So that's just all that proves
What-
to me. But
Yeah, but
the
it's
fact
like
that you
only one
don't
Bernie sold out.
realize how much
But again,
infighting
doing what
is on
Vic said
both
doesn't make
sides is just insane.
It's
on
not
both
responding to
sides.
anything that Vic said, but
No,
he-
well,
Yeah,
I
he
would.
brought up an
just
example of the
listening to
left
someone
infighting.
complete
He just
nonsense
proved
for
your
like 2
point.
minutes.
No, infighting exists on both sides. It is
It
severe
happens
on
on
both
both
sides.
sides.
I've literally watched it happen
Fuzzy,
on a
good to see you.
macro and
Fuzzy, I
micro
think to
level.
show you.
Yep.
Again, I just proved when it came to supporting Trump, all of them did. You can't say there's infighting.
Well, yeah,
they all
because
vote for the
versus
same guy.
like what a
Well,
fucking
on the
bumbling
left,
fucking cokehead like
most of his
Biden.
fallen people didn't vote for Biden or for Kamala Harris. Most of his fallen people didn't vote for Kamala Harris. So
But
right
they all
proves
did in the
you
end, didn't
can't-
they?
you
They all
can't
did in
say
the
that,
end,
Freya.
didn't they?
So-
They
So,
all
so
did.
what
what,
we
what-
didn't.
remind me what was the
What?
election slogans
What's up?
for the left for the past 2 elections? Vote blue no matter who.
Yep.
Why?
Blue,
But
no
For the
matter who.
Democrats,
wait,
Ah,
speak for
Democrats,
Yeah.
not the far
We're
left.
talking about
See,
the
again, ideological
No, guys,
Hassan
guys,
Piker, remember
don't understand
Hassan
what you're
Piker, the
saying.
biggest left-wing streamer, did not vote for Kamala Harris, and he advocated against voting
Well,
for
so
Kamala
that's
Harris.
because Hassan is
right there,
remarkably
you guys are
based
fucking
for a leftist.
retarded, and you're unable to deal with facts.
Of course
because
he
if
wouldn't
you
vote
voted
for her.
Trump, you don't
Of
care
course
about
he-
facts.
of course he
Hassan
wouldn't.
Piker is
Of course he
Mute
wouldn't.
everybody.
unimaginably based for a leftist.
Of course he
Mute.
wouldn't because
Mute. Okay, cool. I muted them all. That's cool. I didn't. I there's probably a button to do that. I should figure out how to do that later. But I made this cute little ChatGPT helped me make this little celebratory message because Fuzzy B gave the very first super thanks to the channel, and I appreciate it so much. I thought it was very sweet, and I was so happy. I had to make sure that I made some memorabilia of it. So thank you, Fuzzy. Happy to have you here. Thanks for stopping by, and thank you again for that $2 super thanks the other day. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. All right, I will return to letting these people shout. Let me unmute.
Well, you know the
Oh, muted
downside
themselves.
about
Okay.
muting on StreamYards. If people are dicks, you're just gonna have to bounce them because they can unmute themselves. You've got to have people who are
Well, good to
basically
know.
respectful and want to hear you.
yeah.
But no,
Well, I'll come to that I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. You know.
yeah, right. Yeah.
my thing is, it doesn't matter if it's left or right. Most people that are stuck in these various cults, they're gonna be smart. They're gonna be snarky smartasses to you when you bring up a point. They're gonna obfuscate. They're gonna engage in whataboutism. They're not going to engage with you and with the facts that you're putting out, or even with the argument you're putting out, even if it's an emotionally based argument. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you're in a cult of personality or an ideological cult. It is what it is. And it has been enlightening. I don't give a fuck if y'all don't like me. I like all of y'all. I drop my Discord in the back if y'all want to meet, if y'all want to come back.
Yeah,
I
I'll
also
join
have a
it.
channel. I don't want to shittily promote myself on someone else's channel without permission, so I'm not. But I have my own channel, Ryan. I hope you'll join us there for some of the topics, John, and even Vikram. I can't pronounce your name. I apologize if I mispronounced it. But I'm
It's all
tired and I don't
It's
want to argue
Vikram.
anymore. So love you all. God bless. Y'all have a good day.
Take care, buddy. Have a good night.
Have a
Y'all
good
have a
one.
good one.
Wrap up here pretty soon. So, John, do you want to give like a little closing statement yourself? And then
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
back for a minute.
I'm just gonna say thanks for having me on, Ryan. Like I said, I disagree with you wholeheartedly, but I think you're a nice guy, and I think we can agree on the things of that it's good to try to do the most right for all people as best as possible. And you'll find that I am an ardent ally against nationalism because I abhor nationalism with every fiber of my body and probably hate it more than I hate democracy or democracy, or even as much as I hate communism. But MAGA is a problem, and I do think Trump is a problem. I'll tell you what, my thing is that I think what's important is to have good conversations about it so that we can actually suss out, because where he is wrong and where he needs to be corrected and where people need to be on that is, I'm all for that. So
can I ask you one question before you go? It sounds like we again, like we agreed earlier that you think that Congress should impeach Trump based on what's happening right now. Yep. So if a hands-off protests, if you had the free time to do it and you were available, like, would you lock arms with me at a hands-off protest? Like, would you be standing there in opposition, trying to pressure? All right, that's hey, then you know what? As far as I'm concerned, you are an ally to me right now. So
I mean, I support the people being able to protest, and and that's what makes America great. And I do think that the fact that there are people out there who think, oh, he should even be considering a third term, that is asinine, as well as it is a threat to our democracy. So,
no doubt. I appreciate you saying that. All right. Have a good night, Joe. Yeah. Take care. Vic, how you doing?
When I initially asked if you're going to have an after thing, I thought we were just going to shoot the shit. I had no idea it was going to be like a politics debate, because I was like, I needed to get my half an hour like cardio, and I was like, wait, I have to go, and then I came back and you guys were still going. It's like, damn, you guys still going?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
no,
I've been
I
like
agree with,
nocturnal.
Yeah.
So
what's that?
this is my normal sleep. This is my normal sleep schedule now. I've just been staying up all night, and I was actually a little bit disappointed with the way I was hoping before Craig left that I could promote, like, make a pitch to his audience to come hang out. But he left like really suddenly, and I was like, damn it, because when I tuned in his marathon live stream the other day, and I was like, oh shit, these are the people. This is my target audience. Like, Craig's people are exactly who I've been looking for. So I was a little disappointed in that, but in any case, I figured I'd just keep streaming like I planned to anyway, and it's gone fairly well. I made some money, which is cool. I will definitely start doing this more. I think I make a good panel host. What do you think?
At the beginning, when like I felt like there were people like getting personal, insulting each other, and you let them. I was like, but before I went to for my walk, and I was like, why are you letting them? Because it's getting personal. Like it's when it gets like personal insults, it's best to like cut it off. But everything else after that was good. As much as we got kind of heated, like I feel like I enjoyed it. Like, it's fun for me. I don't mind. Like, I don't both people here seem like nice people. They just voted for terrible things, but they're nice people. It's not like disagreeing over or like who someone votes for, even though your vote ends up like hurting a whole lot of people, including yourself.
Yes.
Even though that happens, that doesn't mean, like, for example, one thing I actually really agree on with John, when John mentioned that he's against nationalism, I completely agree, which is why I think he really messed up by voting for Trump, because Trump is as nationalist as they get. And it's not like we didn't know that. We knew that way before. You can't claim to be against nationalism, you can claim to be a capitalist, you can claim to be all that, and support Trump's immigration policies. That goes against all these values. But so my general point is just this, like, the entire world is looking at the US and laughing at them. And there was a time when the US was the greatest country in the world. Like, everybody from third world countries to like first world countries were looking up to the US. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's all because people voted for Trump a second time.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty nightmarish, but we gotta get through it. So hopefully we can. I mean, I think there's been more, increasingly more Republicans standing up and saying like, "Hey, this is kind of crazy. What's going on?" And that's why I really like hammered down on that point. I was like, anyone who is willing to like agree that like we should be protesting or we should be standing up and saying, "Hey, we need to impeach this guy," like, or this is not okay, what's happening. Like, those are my allies in this moment, because I want to make sure that we have a country after this. So we can all fight about all the other minutia after we get through the constitutional crises, So I appreciate.
I mean,
I appreciate
there's this thing with like, sorry, I apologize again. I thought you were done.
Don't ever let it happen again, you piece of shit.
Um, there's a thing. There's a I think Destiny made me realize this. Like, there's only so much you can be nice to people you disagree with, even if they were like, "Oh yeah, we messed up by voting for Trump." Yeah, but the the harm is already done now. Like, it's good you realize now, but how did you not know that before? It's not like Trump was hiding that stuff. That stuff was all out there. Like, how can we
That
be like,
was
"Oh, it's okay, you didn't know"? What didn't you know? He said it already. Like, you. But yeah,
I'm not wearing any makeup. I don't. I'm just naturally this handsome. Believe it or not.
yeah. I don't know. For me, like, again, like, because sitting where I live, so obviously I'm in Canada. For me, I look to like sometimes like Canadian conservatives, and I agree with them on a bunch of stuff when they talk about some things. But Canadian conservatives all make fun of Trump. There's a reason why
Oh yeah.
Polyev had to turn his entire platform into being anti-Trump as well before these elections, because
Yep.
reasonable conservatives cannot, in their right mind, support what Trump did. But most American conservatives did. And now you have to wonder why. How could you like how bad is the American education that this happened?
Yeah, that is. So yeah, that's. I feel like a lot of Americans really just don't understand much about how our system actually works, and I mean, to be honest, I find myself learning a lot just by watching like what Trump's doing and like learning about like why people are concerned about it. And every day I'm learning like more about like the foundations. This is funny. It's funny, K2. A lot of people on Sarah's channel think that I have like gray skin because I had the lights that I had on for several streams were just like really bright. So it was like it made me look really pale. But yeah, that's why that's happening. Thank you, Flezzy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
whenever
I agree.
sorry, I know if you're gonna I just say one thing, I'll leave. I don't want to overextend my stay. I was gonna say, oh yeah, what's the thing with when it comes to whenever I hear anyone on, because it's very interesting now to see all these right-wing people saying they don't care about free speech anymore. They were obsessed with free speech like just like 5 months ago. Like 5 6 months ago, that was the
Yeah.
biggest thing in the world. Now none of them care anymore. Now, like, I remember even the two guys we had here, when I mentioned free speech, they laughed. Like,
Yeah.
and when I mentioned
Not concerned
American
about it.
values, they laughed. So that right there shows American conservatives do not care about American values. Like,
Yeah, or at
and
least it's an
the fact that
example
like
of it. Yeah.
yeah, like a year ago, if I said that, they'd be like, no, free speech is under attack by the left, the American values. But now they all laugh at American values and the principles of free speech and all those things that make the United States the greatest country in the world. They laugh at it. So if anyone who's listening, always remember this. Like, most of these conservatives are lying to you. They don't actually hold the principles they claim to hold, because the second they get in power, they drop all of it. They don't care about any of that. Um, like, because a lot of times, sorry, I'm over speaking, but I'll end on this.
No.
Whenever you
I
hear
mean, you're
conservatives
kind
be
of
like,
cooking.
trans women should not be allowed in women's sports and all that, I agree with that. I don't support that either. Whether or not you support it doesn't matter. Why? Because that's pretty much not even an issue. When you look
Yeah.
at everything going on in the US economically, on healthcare and immigration and all that stuff, there's so much stuff that conservatives are messing up on, that truthfully a niche issue like trans women in women's sports, or which washroom trans people have to use, does that
Yeah.
really matter in the grand scheme of things? These are all these problems. Like, is your ability to have affordable healthcare, to not have to go broke from paying for like a medical like necessity that you must like that you really need, is that really like, are you willing to put that at risk to not allow a trans person to use some washroom? Is that really that big a deal? But yeah.
Apparently it's enough of a deal. But I mean, obviously I agree. It's the kind of outrage bait. The conservatives have spent a very long time hammering down on those specific things and fear mongering and saying that these are the biggest deals. These are the biggest concerns that Americans have. There's the scariest things in the world, and it's destroying our families, destroying our society. It's all this evil cultural Marxism it's crushing everybody. And meanwhile, they're doing all the trying to do all the things that Trump is currently doing, and laughing at all the people who are who don't realize it, and the people who are realizing it are laughing alongside them. When we complain about them, we complain about American values, they laugh. You know, we complain about them breaking American values, rather they laugh at it. So anyway,
Yeah, just
I'm getting tired.
I'll say
so
this
I'm
and then
gonna-
I'll head out. Just my
yeah,
last
go ahead,
sentence and then I'm
finish
heading
up.
out. So everyone who's watching, just go back to the scene when I mentioned American values and free speech and look at John laughing. That rather should show it to you, should prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that conservatives do not care about American values. Conservatives never cared about free speech. They're all liars. As soon as they get in power, they throw all these principles away. Do not trust anyone who's conservatives, in American conservative at least, and anyone who would vote for Trump. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I will give the slightest bit of pushback, and I would have to see John specifically like making a like, because it's possible that John was already had these consistent values against like not, or like already didn't care about free speech and was vocal about it. It's possible, but there are a lot of conservatives who do exactly what you're describing, and
I mean, not just John. The other guy did not have his thing on, so that's why you can't see.
Yeah, sure.
But we can be nice. We are nice people, but their votes screwed up the entire U.S. and the whole
they're
world
actually
will suffer
destroying my
because of
country.
their votes. So
yeah, in the
there's
war
only
in the
so
world,
much
they have
we
a
can be
global
nice to
economy.
people, you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no
I'm
doubt.
overextending myself. I'll talk to you next
No,
time.
you're not at all. No, I appreciate it, Vic. You know, yeah, I agree. It's very scary times. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna ask chat if they have any final memes for me. Chat, do you have any final memes for me? Because I'm sleepy. But this is fun. I did, I guess, 2 streams tonight. I made money for the first time on stream. I mean, I guess I made a little bit of money back in the day when I was streaming a lot, but this is the first time I got like $20 super chats and shit. Like this is crazy. I made like $60 on the, or not 60, 40, at least 45 in the earlier stream. No problem, Fuzzy. I'm gonna do more. Okay, this is I've kind of like this was a good like proof of concept that like showed me I can do this shit, and that like people are interested in it, and also that panel was I mean you know, some of those guys drive me crazy, but like it was good practice for me, like sitting and hosting a panel and like telling them like when to shut the fuck up, and trying to walk them through the dialogue, and being like, hey, let's stay on this point, you know, like that was fun for me. So I think I'll try to do stuff like this more. But for now, love you all. Drink lots of water like I need to do, and never forget, learning is radical. Good night.